Good morning, it's Sister Aisha. I'm so excited to be doing Children's Church with you on Facebook Live. Today, we're going to be talking about a wife for Isaac. So what I need you to do is sit up, zip up, and listen up. You ready? Okay, let's go. So today's memory verse is Genesis chapter 24. Can you do a 2 and a 4? 24, verses 26 and 27. And it says, "The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord and said, 'Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness towards my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman.'" So what this means, number one, is that you have to know that back in the day, they did have masters and they had servants, but it was almost like somebody who worked for you. So it would be like your boss at your job, right? So God promised Abraham that he would bless him, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. There's a whole bunch of stars in the world. And that through Abraham's family, all families of the world would be blessed. That means your family is blessed. That means my family is blessed. All of us are blessed because of Abraham. So Abraham believed God's promises and trusted his word. Now it was time to find a godly wife for Isaac, who was Abraham's son. But seeking her meant that they had to apply the same principles of faith that Abraham had. So he called his best employee, his favorite servant, and he said, "You've got to make me a promise that you will find a wife for my son who knows God, not from the women that live around here in Canaan that worship idols. You're going to have to go back to my hometown and find a wife for him there." Okay, it's question time. So what did Abraham ask his servant to do? Do you remember? That's right. Abraham asked his servant to find a wife for Isaac. Is there anything that you can't find in your city? Maybe there's not a movie theater or a water park. Six Flags. Maybe there's a Six Flags somewhere and it's not here in Gulfport. Not having these kinds of things means that we have to travel to other cities or towns. Abraham and his family were living in an area with people who didn't worship God. They didn't follow God. But Abraham said he wanted his son to marry a godly woman. And that's so important for you. For whenever you get married, you have to marry somebody who's godly. But in order to find somebody like this, the servant had to travel a really long way to where Abraham was born. Were you born in Gulfport? Was your mom or your dad born in Gulfport? Probably not. So they had to travel a really far way. But sometimes you have to go out of your way to get things that are worth it. So his loyal servant only had one concern. What if I get there and she doesn't want to come back with me? I got to go all the way super far and she may not want to come back with me. But Abraham confidently recounted the promises that God made to him, and he told his servant, "The God of heaven, the one who will fulfill every promise he made, he's going to send an angel to go with you." How cool is that? So the servant was encouraged by his master's words, and he swore that he would do exactly what he asked. Okay, it's question time. So what was the servant's one concern? Do you remember? Say it again. Perfect. He was worried that she would not want to come back with him when he did find this woman. Okay, second question. Have you ever gone grocery shopping for your own family? All by yourself? It's a huge job. You've got to remember who likes what foods. You've got to get all the meals, the snacks, the drinks for your entire family. And it seems really simple, but you've got to make a long list. You got to find the items. You got to pay for the items. What if they tell you to get cereal? Do you know what kind of cereal to get? Do you get Frosted Flakes? Do you get Cinnamon Toast Crunch? What kind of cereal do you have to get? What are you going to do? That's what happens with every single item on the grocery list. How can you make sure that you buy what your family needs? Well, you can troubleshoot, which means solve a problem before it occurs, and you can think about what your parents would normally buy, or you can call them and ask them for very specific information. Before you take on a big job like this, it's very important that you think about the problems that could occur before they do. This helps us to plan, to ask questions about how to overcome potential obstacles. Abraham's servant was given a huge task. He had to find a wife for Isaac. He considered all of the obstacles that he was going to encounter, and he asked Abraham how to overcome them. He troubleshooted the problem. So Abraham reminded his servant of God's faithfulness and offered him reassurance by telling him that an angel would go with him. So what the servant did was he took 10 camels. That's like taking 10 cars now, right? And he set off on this really long journey. When he finally got there, he stopped at a well just outside of the city. A well is a big round hole where you get water from the ground. As he waited, he prayed to God for a sign, and he said, Lord, will you grant me success today and help me to show steadfast love to my master Abraham. I pray that while I'm standing here by this big old well, that a lady will come who's supposed to be Isaac's wife, and when I ask her for water, she'll give me water, but she'll also give it to all 10 of the camels. Before he could even finish praying, Rebecca walked up, and she was so beautiful. And the servant ran, and he was like, hey, can I have some of the water that you brought? And she quickly gave him a drink of water, even though he was a stranger. And she said, you know what? I'll go feed your camels as well. So the servant was amazed. It struck a chord in his heart, and he said, could this beautiful woman be Isaac's wife? So he studied her, which means he just kind of looked at her really, really hard while he went about the difficult task of watering 10 thirsty camels. He could see that not only was she beautiful, but she was kind. Okay, it's question time. So how did Abraham's servant pray that he would recognize the woman who was meant to marry Isaac? That's right. He prayed that the woman who was to marry Isaac would offer water to him and his camels. If you were meeting someone you'd never met in person or seen a photo of, how would you find them? You could ask every single person, hey, are you my friend? Are you my friend? Are you the person I'm supposed to be meeting? Maybe you could tell them, hey, I'm going to have on a blue jean dress with a black jacket. It would make you super identifiable. Or I went to South Alabama, so I could tell them I'm going to wear a blue South Alabama t-shirt. Or maybe I'll carry a red flower or my stuffed animal, cheesecake. He's a giraffe. So Abraham's servant had an even greater problem because he didn't know what she looked like. He didn't know her name. He didn't know what kind of personality she had. He was just looking for a suitable wife for Isaac. That meant that he couldn't just pick out somebody that had a pretty face and hope that she was a good person. Picking out a good wife would mean spending a lot of time getting to know people in the village in order to determine who had a good character. But rather than spend all that time, he just prayed and he asked God to make the woman who was Isaac's wife identifiable because she was going to offer his camels some water. when Rebecca did exactly what he prayed, it was like she had on a t-shirt, but instead of South Alabama, it said Isaac's future wife. The servant was so confident that Rebecca was the one for Isaac, and so he gave her jewelry. And when her brother saw all of those camels by the spring, he ran to greet them. He invited the servant to stay at his dad's house. It'd be like you met your new best friend and you said, hey, you want to come spend the night at my house? So he invited him to join them for dinner. When they sat down to eat, the servant was like, whoa, 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 stop. I can't eat until I've done everything that my master told me to do. And he started telling them everything that happened on his journey. Okay, it's question time. So once the servant knew that Rebecca was the one for Isaac, what did he give her? Yep, you guessed it. He gave her jewelry. Question number 2. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be? More than likely, we'd pick somebody that was famous or important. When Laban saw all of the camels that Abraham's servant had, remember, they're just like cars, he recognized that this was a very important man. So Laban immediately invited him to come and eat dinner with them and stay at their house. Laban knew that helping him would be helpful for his whole family. So after they listened to the servant's amazing story, they all agreed that it was God that led him to Rebecca. The next morning, the servants said to Rebecca's family, all right, it's time to go home. I'm going home and I'm taking Rebecca back with me. But her brother and her mom begged that she would stay for another 10 days. And they were like, okay, after she stays for 10 days, then she can go. But the servant was like, nah, I gotta go home. It's like if your mom told you you could go play outside, but you gotta be home when the street lights come on. Anybody's mom like that, or was that just my mom? So she had to go with him right then to make sure that the servant did what Abraham told him to do. So Rebecca agreed to go with him. She was like, you know what? Let's do it. I'm ready. So the family blessed her. They prayed over her, and then they sent her to start a whole new life. Question time. So how long did Rebecca's brother and mother want her to stay before leaving? Yep, 10 whole days. If you were offered an opportunity to go to school in a foreign country for a whole year, but you had to leave tomorrow, would you do it? It's an amazing opportunity. But if you had to leave that soon, it'd be really hard to leave your family for a whole year. Rebecca wasn't even leaving for a year. She was leaving for a very long time. In fact, she probably didn't know if she would ever see her family again. Her family just wanted 10 more days with her before she left, but they realized the situation was urgent. And so Rebecca agreed to leave and follow God's will for her life. This decision was a huge leap of faith that required her to trust God. Rebecca and the servant traveled nearly 500 miles. It's like 9 hours in the car, but even longer with bathroom breaks. And so as they approached the settlement, Rebecca said to the servant, "Who is that man that's walking toward us?" And the servant said, "That's Isaac. That's your husband." And she quickly jumped down from the camel and she started fixing her hair and getting ready. And the servant went to tell Isaac all the wonderful news about how God had chosen a special bride for him. Okay, next question. Who did Rebecca see in the distance? Yep, she saw Isaac. So if you were dirty and sweaty and smelly, and you smell like a camel or maybe a dog, would you want to meet a super important person? Probably not. If you wanted to meet Steph Curry, would you want to smell like outside? Nah. So smelling like a camel is not really good to make a first impression. Usually you want to clean up a little bit, Rebecca had been traveling through the hot, dusty desert for days, probably like 3 or 4 days, on the back of a camel. She was on the way to meet her future husband. So when she saw him really far off in the distance, even though she was excited to meet him, she wanted to take a minute to fix her hair and change her clothes maybe, or just wipe her face off before she met Isaac. When they were finally introduced, it was love at first sight. They met and married that very same day and had a long, happy life together. The promise that the whole world would be blessed through this special family would be fulfilled hundreds of years later, because out of Isaac and Rebekah's family would come Jesus, the Messiah. Next question. I hope you've been paying attention. How long after they met were Isaac and Rebekah married? Yeah, the same day. Don't try that at home. Next question. Can one person's blessings end up blessing others? Even if the blessing belongs to one person, the blessing can affect the lives of other people. If your parents get a new car, don't you get to ride in the new car? Or if they get a lot of money, don't you get new toys or clothes? You can take that new car and they can take you to see your friends, or they can take you to get ice cream. But in this story, God blessed Isaac and Rebekah with a happy marriage. That happy marriage led to Jesus' birth, something that blessed every single person on the planet. This one wonderful blessing led to a miraculous grace. So just to wrap up, don't forget, we were coming from Genesis chapter 24, and we talked about Isaac and Rebekah and how the servant had to use faith in order to find Rebekah and bring her back home to get married. Don't forget to go like the church's YouTube page and subscribe, and go to the website and download this week's activities and learn the memory verse. See you soon.
God promised Abraham that he would bless him, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and that through Abraham's family, all the families of the world would be blessed. Abraham believed God's promises and trusted his word. Now it was time to find a godly wife for Isaac, and seeking her meant applying the same principles of faith. He called in his most trusted servant, saying, "Swear to me that you will find a wife for my son who knows God, not from the women here in Canaan who worship idols, but return to my hometown and find a maiden there." His loyal servant had only one concern. What if there is no woman willing to leave her hometown and travel so far away to this strange land? Abraham confidently recounted the promises that God made to him and responded to his servant, "The God of heaven, the one who will fulfill every promise he made, he will send an angel to go with you." The servant was encouraged by his master's words and swore to him that he would do exactly what he asked. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and set off on the long journey. When he finally arrived, he stopped at a well just outside the city, and as he waited, he prayed for a sign. "O Lord God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. I pray that while I am standing here by this spring of water, the maiden who is to be Isaac's wife will not only serve me water at my bidding, but will also offer water to my camels." Before he finished praying, Rebekah approached the well. She was very beautiful. The servant ran to the young lady and asked, "Please, may I have a drink of water from your jar?" She quickly gave the stranger a drink. "I will fetch water for your camels as well," she said kindly. The words struck a chord in the servant's heart. Could it be that this beautiful girl was the one for his master's son Isaac? The servant studied her while she went about the difficult task of watering 10 thirsty camels. He could see she was as kind as she was beautiful. The servant was now confident that Rebekah was the one for Isaac, and he adorned her with jewelry. When Rebekah's brother Laban saw the grand procession of camels near the spring, he ran to greet them. Laban invited the servant to stay in his father's home and to join the family for dinner. As they sat down to eat, the servant interrupted, "I cannot eat until I have done everything my master sent me to do." And he began to explain all that had taken place. After listening to the servant's amazing story, they all agreed that it was God who led him to Rebekah. The next morning, the servant said to Rebekah's family, "Let me go now and take Rebekah back to my master." But her uncle and mother begged, "Please, don't take her now. Let her stay at least 10 days. Then we will let her go." But the servant urged them that he must return home right away. The matter was settled when Rebekah agreed to leave. So the family blessed her and sent her away to begin her new life. Rebekah and the servant traveled nearly 500 miles to return to the home of Abraham. As they approached the settlement, Rebekah said to the servant, "Who is the man walking in the field toward us?" The servant replied, "He is my master." She quickly jumped down from the camel and prepared herself as the servant ran ahead to tell Isaac the wonderful news about how God had chosen a special bride for him. Isaac and Rebekah were finally introduced, and it was truly love at first sight. They met and married the very same day and had a long, happy life together. The promise that the whole world would be blessed through this special family would be fulfilled hundreds of years later, because out of Isaac and Rebekah's family would come Jesus, the Messiah.